Okay, hello everybody. We're going to get started, and people will probably be trickling in for the next few minutes. But we have a pretty full evening of wonderful panelists to talk to us tonight about thinking globally about the first years of the Institute for Public Arts International Award for Public Art. So thank you all so much for being here. I am Laura McDermott. I am one of the programming chairs for Public Art Exchange, along with my co-chair, Renee Painchaki. And this evening, I will just be here as tech support and also to help with some Q&A at the end of our session. But if anybody has any questions as we go through, you're welcome to place them in the chat that I will refer back to at the end of our session. So if anybody is unfamiliar with Public Art Exchange, it is a free open platform for people interested in the field of public art to have dialogue and to connect to resources. So I encourage you, if you're not currently a member, to sign up at publicartexchange.org. There's also a little QR code on the screen right now that allows you to support the work of Public Art Exchange to provide these free and open access to resources and programming. And if you're part of Public Art Exchange and you would really like to have a program about public art, you're very welcome to do that as well. So if you have an idea for a program or something that you'd like to talk about in community, you're welcome to reach out to myself or to Renee, and we can help you bring a program to life. So really appreciate everyone being here this evening. I will ask you all to just mute as we have our panelists speak for this first about 50 minutes, and then we'll have more open discussion at the end of our time. So to get us started here, what's happening? Gosh. There we go. I'm just going to very briefly, and each of our speakers this evening can introduce themselves more fully, introduce each one of our five panelists this evening. So first up, we have Jack Becker. Jack Becker has been embedded in the field of contemporary public art for 50 years as an artist, educator, producer, consultant, curator, writer, publisher, and arts administrator. Founder emeritus of the Minnesota-based nonprofit Forecast Public Art and its magazine, Public Art Review. We have Marlena Myles, a self-taught Spirit Lake Dakota artist in St. Paul, Minnesota, who brings Indigenous history, language, and traditions into modern contexts through children's books, augmented reality, murals, and more. Her notable works include augmented reality public art installations, such as the Dakota Spirit Walk, Sacred Hoop Walk, and Wadakota Walk. Mundano, a Brazilian artivist who has used art as a tool for social change for 15 years. A defender of the environment and human rights, he founded the NGO Pimp My Caraca and created the Kataki app, connecting waste pickers to waste generators. His activism has taken him to over 20 countries with murals, lectures, and global partnerships like TED Fellows. Lori Goldstein is the senior manager of Creative West Public Art Archive. Goldstein is responsible for the system's long-term planning, product development, and for overseeing the addition of public art collections to the archive. Jessica Fiala is an independent scholar, consultant, and dancer based in Minneapolis. She's a research associate of the consulting firm 8 Bridges Workshop and a company member of Ragamala Dance. Her research focuses on intersections of the body, space, and identity. Those are amazing speakers this evening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it over to Jack, who's going to get us started talking about the Institute for Public Art and this international award. Jack. Oh, you are muted. Jack, we can't hear you. There you go. Can
you hear me now?
Yes, you are good.
All right, I'm gonna start over here. Hi, everyone. It's really exciting to be here today. been thinking about this for a long time, and I'm just so grateful to Public Art Exchange. And Laura, thank you so much for helping us get this ready to go today. It's just fabulous. Um, I'm going to do a quick origin story for the International Award for Public Art, and I have to start out by talking about my involvement with Forecast Public Art, which was a nonprofit I started back in 1978. And by 1989, we had a statewide grant program for artists in Minnesota and started Public Art Review, publishing twice a year. And publishing the magazine put us kind of in the center of this public art sphere, and we got all kinds of information sent to us from all over. And I had a huge appetite, let's just put it that way, for whatever was going on in the public art field. And information that came into us turning into issues, thematic issues of public art review, was really, what can I say? It was a special job that gave me a perspective of the field that I wouldn't have otherwise had. And of course, it brought all kinds of information that was useful not only to our organization, but to the artists we were working with and to other artists and other organizations. Um, and we spent the first 15 years of public art review in black and white and low cost web printing. And then our 15th anniversary, we went full color. And it really changed things for the magazine and reaching new audiences and being able to show off projects in a way we couldn't before. Well, in 2010 or so, I got an email out of the blue inviting me to come to China to meet with folks at Shanghai University to talk about doing an international award program for public art. And I have to admit, when I first saw the email, I thought it was maybe fake. And that, you get these crazy emails from foreign countries, you're not sure what to do. But this was for real. And they had heard about me through a man named Lewis Biggs out of England, who was a curator for biennials there and had been doing some work with Shanghai University. And I found out that Shanghai University was teaching public art and they were publishing a public art magazine as well. So skip to my next slide here if I can. Let's see. There we go. So Public Art Review, as I said, started in black and white and became color. Our 15th anniversary issue there, you can see, and was published through 2020. And we got involved in this program, which I'll tell you about, not only to help us learn what was going on in the public art field around the world, but to start to network with curators and artists and others that we never would have come into contact with. So I feel very fortunate that this partnership happened, and it's kind of heady to talk about. And I'm so grateful for the folks that are joining me today to help share the different components of this project, this initiative, which has grown over the last 10 years. You can see with this 2020 issue of Public Art Review, we actually had a story about the International Award for Public Art and featured the North American and overall winner, which was the teeter-totter wall at the border of Mexico and US. Some of you may be familiar with, but a lot of people aren't. The magazine in China, mostly in Chinese, but with English translations for a lot of it, was new to me and was coming out monthly and was very glossy and very fancy, but it was an academic journal. So it was really important for me to learn more about them. So in our first meetings, we had lots of discussions about how could we conceivably develop a process for identifying projects, having them nominated, having them researched, having case studies written up about them, and having jurors invited to, in this case, come to Shanghai and review the nominations and make selections based on criteria they developed. So one of the big challenges was figuring out how to divide up the globe into regions and to have jurors come from different parts of the world to help with the jurying process in a way that would help the whole group understand the cultural particularities and social and political realities of those regions. So this was the way that we came up with. It was somewhat arbitrary, but it helped us get our hands around how can we start to address this? How can we start to look for representatives from different regions who could help us out, who could speak English and help us out? And how could we identify researchers to help develop case studies for nominated projects and hire them and pay them to do this work? It turned out that Shanghai University wasn't in a position to hire researchers or do that process of developing the case studies. So we ended up contracting with Shanghai University to hire researchers and collect the material and do the translation work with help from folks in China. And I'll go back one and have these kinds of meetings every couple of years with jurors selected, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on. And Jessica, who's with us today, will talk a lot more about the research process. But during the jurying process, there was lots of statistics available, like where were the projects and how many from each region, and how could we help identify and select semifinalists as well as finalists, and then eventually one winner from each of these 7 regions. And then Shanghai University would host an award ceremony and symposium that would feature the 7 finalists. And at that ceremony, one of those 7 would be announced as the overall winner for the International Award for Public Art. So this is a glimpse into what one of the meeting rooms was like at Shanghai University, where we could wear headphones and have simultaneous translation to help us have conversations about the projects that had been done, as well as for researchers and jurors to present short presentations for discussion that had to do with topics related to themes that were developed for each symposium and themes that had grown out of projects that had risen to the top in these 7 regions. Getting used to having lots of picture taking was one of the cultural shifts that I had to adjust to in China. Lots of picture taking and group photos. They set up displays of the nominated projects that had been considered by the jurors as well as the finalists. And this was very helpful at the university for helping share with a broader audience that might not come to the symposium or the award ceremony to get a better idea of the range and diversity of incredible projects that had been discovered and written up for us. And I think most compelling is a lot of the projects that rose to the top in this process were more bottom-up projects, low-cost projects. There aren't a lot of commissioning agencies around the world like there are in the US. There's a lot of grassroots and community-led projects happening, and folk art and naives and visionaries doing projects that, again, are really worth noting, but rarely are known by audiences here in the US. These are just some snapshots from different eras of the award ceremony, so you can get a little bit of a feel. In China, they like to do up ceremony big. It's very different from the public art conferences you may have attended in the United States. Again, if they didn't have simultaneous translation, they would have somebody on the podium to help translate what artists were saying, or in the cases during COVID, when we had online as well as in person symposiums, this proved very helpful. And of course, I got some media attention over in China just by being the representative of the Institute for Public Art, which is the NGO that was created to help manage this process over the last 12 years. We didn't get much media coverage, and we still don't get much media coverage outside of China, and this is something we'd like to improve. And this is an award program that doesn't offer cash prizes, so it's less interesting to the media, apparently. But the Institute for Public Art set up a website, which you'll hear more about. It has case studies available and filtered by these various sections, what region, the duration of the project, whether it's temporary or permanent, year completed, year nominated. And that's the extent to which you can do searching on the Institute for Public Arts website. But there are over 450 case studies, so it's well worth your while to explore this website and the case studies there. But it was clear to me with so many great projects that it would be important to figure out a better way to find what you're looking for. If you're an artist or a curator or somebody trying to teach something related to public art and some other field, such as environmental remediation or bridging cultures, it would be very hard to find them. You'd have to go through them one at a time. So there was an initiative I wanted to see where we could do some more in-depth, nuanced metadata vocabulary to help with the searching for this. And Lori Goldstein's with us today to help tell you about a partnership with the Public Art Archive that helped us achieve that. Also on the website is a list of all the researchers and former jurors that have been involved in this initiative. And I'm just so grateful for all the people who've been involved over the years, some amazing individuals. And a lot of us are staying in touch. And like PAX, we've started doing Zoom meetings that will help us stay connected around the globe. And during my last visit for the 6th International Award Program last November, Shanghai University announced that they were starting the International Institute of Public Art. This is sort of a boilerplate overview of this initiative. And what's fascinating is the field of public art research, which Jessica is going to talk about some more, is proving really effective at helping students, at least at Shanghai University, find opportunities and career openings that maybe wouldn't have otherwise come to them. So developing research skills is something that grew out of this initiative that's having positive byproducts for Shanghai University. And now they're interested in partnering with other universities that want to start similar research programs at their colleges or universities. So before this gets turned over to our first artist to talk, I just want to say I'm really grateful to so many people who've made this possible at Shanghai University, at the Institute for Public Art, Louis Biggs and Diane, so many jurors and researchers, folks at the University of Michigan who helped do some of the early work on the metadata vocabulary that you're going to hear about. At the Public Art Archive, the new partnership you're going to hear more about. Amazing artists and so many people who spent time even nominating projects for consideration, which we're going to encourage you to do tonight. And thousands of people who've attended these past symposium, mainly folks in China through WeChat and the program they have over there. And of course, host institutions. So this program has been hosted outside of China, in New Zealand, in Hong Kong, and it's just been an amazing adventure. And I'm really excited to have you see the rest of this program, and I remain available for Q&A later.
Thanks, Jack. That was a great overview. Marlena.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marlena Myles. I am from the Spirit Lake Dakota Nation in North Dakota. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I create art that teaches people about our connection to our homelands using a lot of different mediums. I create digitally, and then I export that into murals, animations, into augmented reality. And so that's the work that I was given an award for was my augmented reality. But this work I created here is called the Dakota Land Map. And I created a series of these so far, but this is Minneapolis and St. Paul. And originally, this is Dakota homeland, so everything had a Dakota name. And that's what you see here, the sacred places and the villages and the rivers and bodies of water with the original Dakota names. But I also included modern things that are built here in Dakota because our language can express anything, like I posted this map on Twitter and someone commented, "Oh, I didn't know Indians had light rail back in the day," and I replied back to them that, we're still here, the language is still alive, that you probably last time you thought about Native people was probably when they taught about us in school, and then we disappeared when you started to learn about, George Washington or something. So that person apologized, but people kind of do have a tendency to only think of us in the past. And so we didn't have a written language prior to the arrival of Europeans, and our language and our way of life is embedded in the land. We didn't need to write things down because we could look at a landscape and that would connect us with our worldview. And so this map, some of these places are very sacred, like in the middle, it says Badote, and that's where the Minnesota and the Mississippi rivers meet. And we say that's the place of creation of Dakota people. We don't have a migration story. We're not immigrants. And that for us is where we came to life here in this country. And there's other sacred sites. There's one called Wakan Tipi, and it's the dwelling place of the spirits. And that's the location I chose for my augmented reality installation. But before I get there, our worldview is not just with the land, it's with the stars above. And you say that we come from the stars and we return to the stars. We believe what's above is reflected below. So the Mississippi River to us is reflected above as the Milky Way. And that's the spirit road that we travel to this world and when we return to our ancestors. And that's why we have our burial mounds all along the bluffs of the rivers. So at Wakan Tipi, the bluffs there, they have burial mounds that are over 2,000 years old. And we don't have a word for art in our culture. We use the word Shichun, which is your spiritual potency. So when you're born, there is a woman called Blue Star Woman that gives everybody their Shichun, which is your gifts that you're going to contribute in your community. We say that every person chose their parents. So, baby came to that community with a purpose, and that Shichun is your purpose. And you can leave it behind when you return to the stars. It protects you, and every place holds memory, meaning, and presence because of that Shichun. Let's say you go to your... Even though I'm not your man, I'm gonna call you mine. Can you mute? Like I stand to be cheated. I beat his ass from... what that was about. But so let's say you go to your favorite band's concert and you leave feeling energized. That's that musician sharing your Shichun with you. It's something that you can give and you never diminish it when you give, and you gain more in life. And say you read your favorite author's poetry, or you pick up your grandmother's blanket she knitted and you still feel their
I'm
presence.
just a young gangster, man.
Can you
ladies can't resist me.
kick the person out of this meeting? I think they're a spammer. Sometimes they do.
Yes, I'd kick them.
All right. So, that person's trying to share their Shichun with us, but it's not appropriate. but you know, it stays after when we return to the stars. So that's how we see art. We don't have that mindset of art just goes on the wall, that art, Shichun is a force that we use to lift our communities. And so at the moment, to many, yet folks only need to look with new eyes at the deeper powers held here, and this technology brings ancient knowledge into the present for future generations to access. So it lets the people in Minnesota or anywhere see the world through Dakota people's eyes. And here are some images of the Dakota Spirit Walk, and this is Unchi Maka, Grandmother Earth. And you can see her there with the award, even. And so, you know, when I talk about Indigenous people, you know, we're all supposed to be Indigenous to Earth, but I think when people think of the word Indigenous, they think of people who actually see the Earth as a relative. And so, you know, I want all humans to have that connection with the Earth through their own cultures, their own ways of thinking. And so when they come to the Dakota Spirit Walk, they can see the world through Dakota people's eyes, through my eyes, and it doesn't disturb the land. And I don't need permission from anybody that has a land deed because our stories are older than such concepts. And she teaches us that we're all related, you know, that in order for us to live in a good way, we have to respect each other as relatives. And if we don't, there are consequences. And the next spirit they meet is Umtehi, who's the water spirit. And he warns us, you know, there's consequences for living in a bad way. Umtehi doesn't like humans. He thinks that we pollute the planet and that we, you know, that we're like the stupidest of all animals to exist on the earth, and that we constantly need help and guidance. And so he kind of has a spooky voice, and it's kind of fun to watch the kids get scared of him, you know. And my reservation is called the Spirit Lake Nation, and Spirit Lake is because we believe that these spirits live at that lake too. So I grew up hearing all kinds of stories about if I don't behave, you know, the monster is going to get me. And this is Tunkasha Ina, Grandfather Stone. He teaches us about the Dakota village of Kaposia that was there, and that we learn from children how to be, you know, how our way of life started by watching children play, and how the cottonwood tree. We say there was a giant flood long time ago, and it removed all the life here in Minnesota, and that life returned from the cottonwood tree that grew along the riverbanks. And so if you cut the cottonwood twig in half, there's stars inside of it. So that star has that history of life returning here. And little kids, we saw them playing with the cottonwood leaves, and they'd roll them up into little sort of bell shapes, and those bell shapes were the same shape as teepees. So we learned how to make our teepees from watching children make little villages. And so we say, you know, our ancestors share knowledge with young kids, and that we should listen to them too, and not just learn from elders. And then it ends with Wakia, the thunder being, teaching us how to honor the burial mounds that are here and that our ancestors are watching over us. And I do lead tours of these sites. Here, so you can see people looking at the spirit of Umtehi. And it looks like they're looking at nothing, which is kind of funny from afar, because it looks like a lot of people are just kind of bored on their phones or something. I don't know, from a distance. But I remember when I first saw people playing Pokemon Go, I'm like, what are all these kids in the corner of the streets doing? You know, and I realized, oh, they're playing a game on their phone that's getting them all together and talking about what they're seeing. And so that inspired me to create you know, using augmented reality, because, you know, people always like, well, get off your phone and go outside. And I'm like, why not take your phone and go outside and have fun with it? So, and from here, you know, I created a documentary called Realms of Resilience on allarts.org. It's also on PBS. But, you know, I got an email from them two augmented reality installations. I created the Dakota Spirit Walk and the Sacred Hoop Walk, and with that money, I documented the work I've been creating and why I created and why it matters to all humans and how it can inspire us. And I created the Woe Dakota Walk, and Woe Dakota. So Dakota, that means friends or allies. That's what we call ourselves. And Woe Dakota means sort of creating harmony with all of the world around us, and something we have to strive for. It's also the word for treaty. So when Europeans came here, we thought they wanted to make treaties with us. We thought they wanted to live in harmony with us and coexist. And so, now it's very unstable currently. Yes. If you think about what's happening in politics, but the work I create helps people connect with the land and see that they're here in our generations, are relying on us to make good decisions. So, but this photograph here is part of this artist in residency I have currently with the Ramsey County system. So, we're expanding even more, the celebrations that help people honor the seasons and that way of life that Dakota people traditionally have, and do it in an urban setting. So that, I think it helps people understand when we say, when we acknowledge the land or do land acknowledgements, it's not just saying Dakota people, this is their homelands, but the land is our relative, and that's like what is most important. And winning this public art, I was I'm always so focused on our homeland, so I never realized that people in far away in China could learn about this work and it could be shared with so many people. And, all Indigenous people have stories to tell too. So, it helps me see that part of something bigger. But thank you.
Thank you so much. The project's getting a lot of love in the chat too. So everybody, please stick around to talk at the end as well. Mundano, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. Well, Marlena, so beautiful. Thanks for sharing. This was really inspiring to get more deep into this great use of knowledge and technology and everything. That's great. So I will share here also my screen. Hello, can you see the screen, right? Yes. So I am Mundano. That's my graffiti street art name. I am here, this man here, white man, exactly on the middle of the painting. And this I painted in Baltimore as trying to deliver these messages on the public art. And I got in touch with public art because of graffiti. So that's why I think it's interesting, this language, because graffiti you can express your, and I'm really happy to reconnect with all of you here. So I always try to deliver messages on the streets. So this is São Paulo, a picture, and we can see my city. How gray is it? And it's a colorful picture. You can see a yellow on the end. And we have all these social contracts that's getting worse. In big cities, we have all these social contracts. And because we do graffiti, we go everywhere and connect with these people. Like I think you can see this woman here collecting a bottle during a soccer game, or in the middle of the city, call this guy collecting. So graffiti show me these invisible superheroes that are the ones that are really recycling. The way speakers, scanners, there's each city there's a name, but they are informal recyclers, waste collectors, and picking. So I start to painting those cards and I never stopped painting. And it was in 2007. And that was amazing because it was like a wall. I was doing my message like this one. My car doesn't pollute because it's an eco-friendly car, human driven. The wheel, it was invented thousands of years, the same technology. But doing this, but I understood the public art as a mobile art exhibition, making them visible and have more profit. So I started doing massively, painting more and more and more cards with message that was from that moment, especially in the context of São Paulo, Brazil, or global. And I never stopped painting, and this was getting not viral, but people started to go to invite me, started to go to other cities to do the same. Like this is, for example, is Buenos Aires, Argentina, Santiago, Chile, Cochabamba, Bolivia, or Soweto, South Africa, Istanbul, Turkey, or even in rich places like New York, the Times Square, they have this, or in Berlin, Germany. So all over the world, mainly on the global south, we have this activity, because when we have unemployment, waste, and social contracts, and in this all this abundance of these consumers, we will have people collecting waste to survive. And I started to share and invite to more artists. When I understand how big was the thing, so invited more artists. So this was 13 years ago. It was a massive event with thousands of people. So we were rebuilding and painting 50 of them. So this we spread to whole Brazil. But this I did a big jump. This is when we made 10 years. Now we are in 13 years. But just to show that we created several programs. It is in Portuguese here, but you can see that at least 10 programs. And this is in the whole map of Brazil, in the cities that we reached, each one of them. So it was also expanding with smaller actions to other countries, because we have speakers, graffiti, street artists, illustrators. Or, for example, this in Lima, in Peru, at the COP20. So now we're going to have COP30 in Brazil. So this I was doing as an activating to COP20, talking about that one way speaker like her does more for the environment than the environmental minister. These are the kind of the messages that I was written on them. So in these years, we have 24 impacted countries, more than 100 cities, more than 2,000 artists, and 6,000 volunteers. In one of the programs helping this, and they are numbers, I hate to show numbers, because they are people with a family, a face, a history, but in a way to show how the art with activism, as we call it, artivism, was made. Here is just to share another number. This is in square meters. One of the programs that is painting large cooperatives of the workers. So the organized way speakers into cooperatives or warehouses, not the informal ones. So we painted 15,000 over square meters. And the events look like this. So each one is one city, one cooperative, a massive group of artists doing public art outside of the cooperatives. And then it became an app. So
I think you might be frozen. think we lost Mundano.
He's probably going to rejoin the meeting so he can get unstuck.
Yes. Just pause for a second. Somebody did ask there, we are recording. So if you've missed any part of the talk this evening, there will be a recording afterwards. So you can get caught up. We can maybe jump to Jessica while we're waiting here and maybe come back if he's able to join us again.
Yeah, or if there are some questions that
Yeah,
people
does
have
anybody have
while
any
we're talking.
questions right now? No questions at the moment?
Laura, I have a question. I'd love to hear if the last artist, Marlena, right? If she could talk a little bit about community reaction to her project. I loved her description of looking at kids playing Pokemon Go and being like, oh, look, like this is a tool that's getting people together to connect. And I'd love to hear her reflections on the responses to her augmented reality. If she's in the mood to answer.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. So, I've seen people look at it and just like start crying or just start like smiling so much that, they're so like amazed to see the world in a new way that's so accessible and hear the original language and, um, hear the stories being told from a native person while they're standing on these sacred sites. And for me, I think that helps people connect with this ancient history that is still completely relevant because, you know, our creation story is ongoing as Dakota people. It's not something we just observe in the past. We're part of it. And, I've been sort of trying to find ways to expand it to where once I created Dakota Spirit Walk, the curators at the Minnesota Landscape Arboretum saw it and they wanted me to create one there. And then the Pony Art Park, they came and they wanted it. So then we found a way to get money to create the Will Dakota Walk. And now I'm working with the Joyce Awards. I won that, and I'm working with Franconia to create one there. And then the Bell Museum at the University of Minnesota. The Bell Museum is like the Museum of Natural History and the planetarium. So now we're using it to help tell this creation story and indigenous science and our way of life, So, every time I do tours, I get native people and non-native people, young and old, they're just really excited. And when you're an artist, I never know how people react. For me, it just felt like I needed to create this. And I love sitting on a computer so much. My mom, my aunts, my grandmothers, they're all beadwork artists. And as a kid, I couldn't even tie two knots together. You can't even thread a needle. So my mom said, I think sitting on a computer and making digital art is how you will express yourself as a Dakota woman. So, I find a lot of fulfillment and, I get people that travel to the Twin Cities and they go out of their way and go to these parks that aren't like the mainstream parks and want to see this. So, it's something that I see is impactful, that's actively happening. Like these Dakota land maps are in almost every elementary school and most libraries have them now, and even Harvard and stuff has them in their collections too. So the map is just a big picture view, and using augmented reality lets me sort of tell these stories without me needing to be there, because it's like my spirit stays in that space with my ancestors and helps people build that bond too. And that way they can respect Native people. Because here in Minnesota, there's a Dakota war we had, and some people, that's the only way they learn about us is through this conflict. They don't learn about our way of life or the way we see the land, or that we build peaceful relationships with not just the natural world, but different communities. And this helps people, have more empathy for Dakota people and our causes. And so Minnesota has changed the state seal. It used to be something racist. Now it's something not racist. The seal even says Minnesota Makoche on it, the full name of Minnesota and Dakota. They got rid of the French motto. So, and land has been returned and sites have been renamed in Dakota. So I do see this as part of a big picture to, honor this land and the original people who are from here. Yeah, thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you for that question and thank you for that answer. I appreciate that. Let's get Jessica, if you want to share your presentation. I don't see Mundano back on here yet, so we'll just keep moving forward.
I just unmute. Thank you so much, Marlena and Mundano in absence for your presentations. Mine is going to kind of zoom way out and talk a bit about just the nuts and bolts of the research process behind the award. For context, I was the research coordinator for the 2015 round of the IAPA. And then in the decade since, I've periodically been a researcher or a nominator for the award. But I'm not actually overseeing any of the research now. So I'm more drawing on some of those experiences over the years, both behind the scenes and attending some of the in-person and virtual convenings related to the award. So the research has kind of two main components, and it's evolved a bit over the years as opportunities to share out information about the projects have expanded. But one piece is just internally facing, really focused on supporting the jury review process. So that involves gathering nominations, vetting nominations, assigning case studies or projects to researchers to develop case studies that are then used in the jury deliberation process. The other piece is externally facing, which is focused on publications and sharing out this information, developing occasionally exhibitions, and having convenings that are putting researchers, artists, public art practitioners, and other people just interested in the field together, and bringing those people together across geographies. The big first piece that I will mention is the nomination process. Sometimes this might be one person. They might be nominating a project that they were directly involved in, or if it's an artist, they might be nominating a project of their own. But there are also researchers who sort of seek out or try to expand beyond their existing connections to find projects to nominate. Typically within their immediate geographic region, but sometimes around different parts of the world as well. In doing that, there is an effort to think about a breadth of representation in projects that are nominated. That's both thinking about artist demographics as well as geography and the spread of projects across a region and across different regions, both urban and rural projects. As well as thinking about project medium and projects that take many, many different forms and projects that take many different durations. But even with efforts by individuals, there's always this desire to continue to expand the network and expand the number of people who are putting in nominations for the award. And that was one of the initial challenges that Jack kind of brought up, was finding about public art projects happening around the world. And it really is individual people submitting those nominations that make the award happen. And I say all that as a plug because nominations are currently open for the next round of the award. So you can go to the website and you can nominate projects now, and we definitely encourage you to do so. After the nomination process, there is a bit of a vetting process that occurs. Some of this is just to look at what is being nominated. The International Award for Public Art is an award for public art projects, so it's not awarding sort of artists generally or arts organizations generally. It is for a specific project. There are also designated timeframes. So the current award cycle is accepting nominations for awards between January 1st, 2018 and January 1st, 2025. So there's a check to just see was a project completed during this time frame. And then because the award happens every few years, there's also a process to double check if a project has already been researched, because there is some overlap in these timeframes. There is a goal to continue to grow this massive archive of researched case studies. So as part of that, there's an attempt to not duplicate efforts or consider the same project over and over again for the award. Finally, the IAPA does have certain focus areas. This includes art-led urbanism, as well as placemaking, which can encompass place-responsive work, place-based work, site-specific, however you might want to think of that, as well as community building work and social practice work. Another big piece has involved gathering project images. This is in part because the two initial entities that were collaborating to start the award were both print publications. So there was a need for high resolution print quality images in order to be able to share information about the projects. Gathering those high resolution images has also enabled the award to mount these different kinds of exhibitions that feature the projects. And certainly images are important for researchers who can't visit a work in person, and for people reading about a project. It's another way in beyond the text. That said, high resolution images can be a barrier. Some projects don't have those high quality images available. So that's another topic that's been a recurring topic of conversation. Finally, as Jack mentioned, there is also an effort to find a balance amongst the 7 global regions. So the goal for each round of the IAPA is to have about 20 projects researched for each of these 7 global regions. So that's about 140 projects each cycle being researched for the award. In terms of the vetting process, if one region receives many nominations, there'll be a process to kind of cut those down to about 20. If another region does not have as many nominations, there'll be an extra push and effort to gather more nominations so you can have this regional balance. Once projects are selected, they're assigned to paid researchers to develop case studies. And these case studies are in some ways focused along criteria for the jury process. So there is a general overview description of a project, which might include information about the relationship between the artwork and local cultures, or between ways in which this particular artwork on this particular place has fostered a kind of dialogue between artwork, community, and place. There's information about the development process that can include technical details like fabrication processes, but it might also involve funding mechanisms or how a project has been managed. There's a question of artistic excellence, which is another topic of debate, and also takes many forms because there are so many types of projects that are nominated for the award. The IAPA has offered some guidance in thinking about excellence, whether it's significance or influence in the larger field of art or public art, contributions of an artwork to a local economy or society, perhaps the inspirations behind the artwork, or maybe even something that's more of that intimate dynamic between the public interacting with the work and the work itself. And welcome back, Mundano. So we'll just wrap up and then we can go back to you. And then finally, there's an opportunity for researchers to offer their own analysis of a project, which could be from an academic or curatorial point of view or another professional perspective. And again, because there are so many different disciplines that intersect with the field of public art, these perspectives can take many forms. And beyond exploring existing materials like existing publications or press coverage or artist social media, other materials that exist about projects, researchers might also seek to interview artists behind projects or other individuals involved, project managers, commissioners, community partners, or site partners. And when possible, researchers might also speak to their own experience visiting a work in person. The other big piece of this is an externally facing aspect, which includes publications, convenings, and a research network. Each round of the IAPA, the award will publish their own kind of materials that are related to the projects and presentations offered. But as Jack mentioned, there's also coverage in adjacent publications like Public Art Review, Public Art China. Public Art Review has transitioned into the online publication Forward. So there are ways in which the IAPA is covered in different publications. And there are also ways in which the award has fostered connections between researchers and different publication outlets. So different researchers have written articles that might draw from award projects or projects that have been researched for the award to produce other kinds of articles for Public Art China or other outlets. The major place where publications related to the award live is on the website, as Jack mentioned. So if you go there, you can find dozens and dozens of case studies across each cycle of the IAPA. And this is one of the major goals behind the award, is to have this resource where people can dive in and find information about all of these different projects happening around the world, a resource that's accessible and free. And it's also a wonderful starting point to dive into new learning and insights and connect information across this breadth of work being done related to place and community. And then the final pieces Jack mentioned as well are these convenings. These have taken a variety of forms, from really intimate gatherings of people directly related to the award and the research process, to larger academic conferences. Sometimes there have been working sessions, and there have also been virtual gatherings as well. All of this momentum has led into a more recent effort, which is the Institute for Public Art Research Network. This is a pretty nascent effort, but the idea is to bring together researchers around the world who are interested in the field of public art and to allow them to build on the IPA and IAPA networks and brand to develop their own self-organized and also self-funded efforts, which might be publications or conferences or convenings of different kinds, think tanks, exhibitions. There are some initial proposed themes that have come out of this work, including graphic practices in public art, textiles in public art, indigenous practices in public art. And you can see that these are associated with particular geographies in the sense that there are researchers from these different geographies who've brought forward these ideas. But there's also a lot of interest in collaboration and communication and dialogue across geographies. And since the early years, there's in particular been an interest in dialogue about public art across different regions of the global South. So if this is of interest to you, there are a lot of ways to get involved. One of the first ones is to just dive into the website and learn more about the award and really use that archive and resource of case studies. You can find out more about Marlena's project, Mundano's project, and so many more. As I mentioned before, nominations are open, so please do nominate projects that you think would be a good fit for the award. And while I'm not overseeing any of the research now, please do feel free to email me and I'll answer questions as best I can, or connect you with other people behind the award if appropriate. So thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing the rest of the other presentations and diving into the conversation.
Thanks, Jessica. That was really great. Mundano, I see you're back on here. You want to finish up your presentation. Sorry about your storm.
The climate crisis here, the global south is like that. I will try to go fast to don't stop the other presentations. Thank you. So I think I was in the last time I had energy in internet. Now I have only because Julia from Macaosa here just shared her mobile access. So all these people, big events, we do this massive murals in public art. And then I was sharing that this became also an app with technology that could connect each recycle we speak, like we call here in Brazil, catadores, could connect them to hire them, to invite them to your house for you can share and donate. So this is now the largest platform of catadores, like we call here in Brazil. And you are connecting and raising recycling rates. So, and also the social part. Here, just to share, just make a thing, we are now doing electric carts, so they can have also increase of the rent, increase of their earnings, and also the recycling. And again, doing a big jump. Here, it was in Hong Kong where we had the conference of the Public Art Award in 2000, back then in 2017. And here I was learning with this amazing woman, really brave, that was recycling in Hong Kong. So I was also painting with the project and sharing and trying to give visibility to them there. And here, like Marlena shared, the amazing award that she received, here is this moment. And here also can see the next moment we had was the conference. You can see here Jack and everything. We did this in Hawaii, also during the residency at the Hawaii Museum, because they have the shopping cart. And here is also trying how the public art could also help a lot of people, homeless people that was without the earnings to survive. But with all the systems, this is how it looks like most part of the rivers and oceans. And like this one in Rio Negro and the Amazon, and a big jump questioning all this greenwash. So the idea is to use the art in a big qualitative proportion, like this plastic wave that we did, like is the inspired by the great wave of Kanagawa. So we do this reinterpretation with plastic that we found on the streets. So now trying to do public art in a different way. So this you can get inside of this wave really hot, and here's a plate with a spoon of all this microplastic. So I keep doing these large walls, how I started, fighting the climate crisis when we have the droughts. But now I am using the pigments. That's my research right now. I will do a quick intro for you. So I am using toxic waste, like pigments of the worst environmental disasters that we have in Brazil, and also doing remix, like for example, this representation of Guernica with the mud, because we have the same numbers of victims and stuff, but also in the streets. So using here is only environmental crime pigments to recreate these workers by Tarsila do Amaral painting with 800 square meters mural. And also using oil from oil split, that all this oil production that we are discussing right now, and also recreating other importance paintings, traditional painting. But the idea was to bring to another level. So I was studying charcoal, the oldest pigment, like the ashes. We have the soil and this. And this is all these green red dots are the Amazon burning in 1 week, you can see. So I went there to collect the ashes of the Amazon. And here I am in this picture. You can see here I'm collecting the ashes. So I started to use the ashes to create my own pigments to do this mural in honor to the firefighters. Before I was honoring the waste speakers as superheroes, now the firefighters. And I know that several parts of the globe, they are doing an important role. So this also made with all ashes in public art, writing names of social activists, social environmentalists that was murdered, like Ario, it was indigenous leader from the Amazon, also from the floods. Just to stop here, this was my last project. So we did my largest painting, public art thing that I did in my life was this. I was representing Alessandra Korat Munduruku, and was the directed message to Cargill that are destroying the Amazon. Yes, this company from the US, the Cargill Macmillan family, are responsible for all this impact, this destruction in my country, but also on the South America, and mainly in the global South, to just one family with 20 people become billionaires. So this, you can see that there is 1,500 square meters mural, And Alessandra is huge here with her hands saying, stop the destruction, keep your promise. In this, we sent this to all the houses of each member of the family, painting these meshes in the heart of São Paulo, main avenues, like you can see in this picture. This is the impact of public art that I'm trying to do this. And it's pretty similar than one of the first paintings or first art that we have on the caverns, putting the hand like a stencil. So I finished this with these connections of the public art in history. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Mundano, if you could share your presentation, if you email it to me, I can email it out to everybody because I think we had some issues seeing some of the things you were talking about at the end. So we can share that when we share the recording because I know people want to see the work. But I also don't, I mean, probably I don't want to disrupt the story.
No worries, no worries. I'll share for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Lori, take it away.
All right. Can everyone see my screen? Give me a verbal. Okay.
Yep.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying on with us. I'm Lori Goldstein, again, the Senior Manager of Creative West Public Art Archive. I wanted to shout out my colleague, Allison Verplates, who's on the call here today, too, who is responsible for partnering with me on all of this work as well. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, the Public Art Archive is a free, continually growing online database of public artworks throughout the U.S. and abroad. The portal is a comprehensive resource comprising almost 30,000 public art projects that provides universal access to discover, explore, and learn about public art across communities and collections. Our platform invites the public to delve into the complex stories that characterize public artworks as dynamic, interconnected keepers of history, context, meaning, and impact. By making all projects discoverable on one of the largest centralized sources of public art information, artists and organizations can increase the accessibility and visibility of public art in every community for free. Our platform allows you to explore particular collections, cities, artwork types, materials, artists, and themes, and engage with public art through interactive maps, exhibitions, and artwork details. So for those of you who haven't collaborated with us before, we invite you to connect. Over the past year, we have been lucky enough to partner with the IAPA team and work with Jack, other members of the team, students from the University of Michigan, Emma and Joel, on what will become an ongoing documentation and archival project to bring the IAPA data and research into the Public Art Archive. You can begin to explore that growing collection at any time, and I believe Laura will put a link in the chat. Data coming into the collection, just like any artworks coming into the Public Art Archive, follow an underlying structure of metadata outlining key components and features about each project. These can include data points such as the artist's name, the dates on view or when the artwork was created, the material makeup, the work type, and the location. The metadata structure is what keeps these projects structured and searchable. Metadata is essentially data about data. Its primary purposes are to enhance data organization, searchability, and usability, providing essential context. It allows us to follow best practices in data management, making sure that we have the necessary information to catalog cultural objects and projects so that we can not only document each project properly and in full, but also to be able to integrate particular data sets to other data sets across collections. Key components of our archive and process is that data needs to be both structured and flexible in order to detail the artworks, but also make them searchable and reflective of the projects that we're cataloging. With the International Award for Public Art Projects, that's not always easy because a lot of the projects fall outside of what we have previously conceived as public art or defined within our standardized terminology. Not all projects fall into a fairly straightforward category of sculpture or installation. They may be more ephemeral, performative, or community-based, which does not necessarily amount to a tangible object that can be visited per se, but instead an outcome or knowledge-sharing initiative. Many of the IAPA projects, however, fall outside of what we have cataloged previously and require us to expand our definitions of what public art is and how it is cataloged. This might require for us to expand our growing list of artwork types and consider public art more conceptually rather than the production of an art object or an installation-based experience. These artworks encourage us to think more deeply about how to document artworks that are or once were at a particular site that can't easily be found at an exact location on Google Maps. And they make us think critically about applying themes to artworks that might not typically follow the same patterns or forms of art commissioned through mechanisms we might be more familiar with, like Percent for Art or capital improvement projects. Despite these factors, the projects that are part of the IAPA collection have become and will remain an essential part of our archive. They demonstrate the astounding impact that creatives can have on topics such as land reclamation, memory, environmental policy, and disaster recovery. And without the work of all of the collaborators involved with the Institute for Public Art and the award program specifically, we may not have ever discovered them, let alone been offered the opportunity to help document and share them out with members of the public art world and the general public. One of the most impressive components of the IAPA project is its truly global nature. Whether the projects are permanently on display or were more ephemeral or temporary in nature, the collection of artworks researched have been cited across all regions of the world. All projects we have cataloged now and those that are forthcoming can be explored as a comprehensive collection or by region specifically. While many projects are what we consider temporary, their impacts are long-lasting, and the importance of archiving these artworks and demonstrating that public art in its many forms takes place all over the world, from urban centers to remote areas, is paramount to demonstrate how public art can have a lasting impact in any type of community. Artists involved in these projects have identified a need for a particular community and addressed that need through a creative lens and process. Like any other artwork on the Public Art Archive, each project is searchable on interactive maps that guide you to the current or past side of the artwork and link you to artwork detail pages that not only outline the metadata, but offer rich context about each project, written by the IAPA researchers across the globe who are essential to the educational aspect of this effort. We are only about a quarter of the way done with a full inventory of data, which, as Jack mentioned, is about 400 projects right now, but we'll keep growing along with the research. While it might be slow, it's important that we take the research apart and capture the metadata points along with descriptive narratives carefully written by the researchers so that members of the public can explore this work not only as a collection of global projects alone, but alongside other projects that share aspects like themes, artists, and placement types, so that people can see how creatives have approached projects on similar subjects, such as indigenous lands, pollution, literacy, and remembrance, and have addressed similar spaces like waterways, streetscapes, abandoned lots, and nature reserves, in a way that is both usable for research and exploratory browsing. While this can be a challenging process, as we need to use the researchers' writing to convert the information back into metadata that can be imported into our site, in some cases it takes a bit of interpretation, this project helps us push our boundaries of what the Public Art Archive can and should be, a platform that bends and stretches alongside the myriad forms of public art across the globe. And through this work, we can not only support the amazing work of the Institute for Public Art and the International Award for Public Art, but we can support artists and communities across the globe that harness the power of public art to incite positive, impactful, and sustainable change within their communities. And we can offer this documentation as evidence that public art really can change the world. So thank you for inviting the Public Art Archive into this project, and please get involved with us, any type of public art collaborator you are. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Lori. The archive is really incredible. Thanks for doing that work. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. If anybody has any questions or wants to start a conversation, yeah, I'll open up the floor.
Well, while we're waiting for questions, and I invite any of you to throw questions out or put them in the chat, I just want to say thank you to the presenters. I mean, you can see why this has inspired me to stay involved even after my retirement from Forecast. And it's been really rewarding to learn about artists working at the ground level in communities around the world and addressing issues that are really critical for people in those places. And I'm hoping that through the sharing of the more nuanced metadata on the Public Art Archive site, that people from different disciplines, different sectors, will start to realize that artists and creatives have a huge value to the work they're doing, if only they could find ones that are related to the kinds of work or issues that they're focused on. So I'm hoping this will lead to some more cross-sector leadership summits and discussions. And I'm hoping that the Public Art Exchange will start to invite cross-sector partners in to talk about these kinds of issues and hopefully share these kinds of projects with their constituents in their realms. Well,
James,
it's a quiet group, if ever I heard one.
I know.
Come on, you Paxers, it's time to raise your hand.
Sorry, I got here late. Just can't imagine what all I have missed. I am just guessing, but thank you.
Comments, questions? I think everybody just got a lot of great comments in the chat, just really amazing presentations, everybody. So thank you all for taking this time to present to this group and share your project, share your knowledge. It's really incredible. Thanks. Maybe we call it.
People are speechless. Well, I think that's a good thing.
Well, amazing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. We will have the recording available so you can revisit later this week. So it'll be on Public Art Exchange. And again, encourage you to sign up. It is free to have access to that platform and connect with your public art neighbors and colleagues. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good night.